Hello, my name is Angelina. I am a student of English. I want to tell you about my journey, how I learned to speak English in public without fear. It was not easy at first. I used to forget words, feel shy, and speak very slowly. But now, I can speak in front of my class and even in front of a big group. Let me share my story with you. I will also tell you how I remember English words and use them when I talk. When I first decided to speak English in public, I was scared. I was not scared of the people. I was scared of the words, the big ones, the strange ones, the ones I always forgot. Words like environment, decision, or probably made my mind freeze. I thought, how can I speak in front of others if I can't even say these words without stopping? That fear stayed in my heart every day. In school, we had an English class every morning. I used to sit in the third row right near the window. I liked that spot because I could look outside and pretend to be busy thinking. But the truth was, I was hiding. I didn't want my teacher to ask me anything. Every time she looked around the room and said, "Who wants to try this sentence?" my heart would beat so fast. I would look down or pretend to write something in my notebook, anything to avoid her eyes. One day, something small changed everything. It was Monday. Our teacher, Mrs. Taylor, walked into the class and said something different. She didn't write a hard grammar rule on the board like she usually did. Instead, she smiled and said, "Today, I want you to use just one English word in the classroom. Just one. Any word you know." Everyone laughed a little. We thought she was joking, but she wasn't. "One word," she repeated. "Say it when you greet someone. Say it when you answer a question. Say it to your friend. Just one word." That small challenge opened a tiny door in my mind. That day, I chose the word thank you. It was a word I already knew. It was easy. I had used it many times when watching English cartoons or YouTube videos, but I had never said it out loud in school, not in real life. So I made a plan. I would use thank you at least one time that day. At lunchtime, my friend passed me her pen. I looked at her and said, "Thank you." She looked surprised for a second, then smiled. "Wow, English," she said. We both laughed, but I felt something new. A spark. A tiny bit of pride. I had said something in English, and nothing bad had happened. No one laughed at me. No one said, "That was wrong." My friend smiled. That was all. The next day, I picked another small word, sorry, and I used it when I dropped my eraser. I said, "Sorry," and again, my classmate nodded. Day after day, I picked one word. Hello? Okay. Bye. Yes. No. Please. Sure. Come. Go. I wrote them on a sticky note and put it inside my notebook. Every morning, I looked at that one word and said it to myself. It became a game for me. It was like planting tiny seeds in the ground. Each word was a seed. And every time I used that word, it grew a little. Not in the soil, but in my mind. Soon I started to join words together. I said, "Thank you, Mia," or "Sorry, I dropped it." I didn't even notice when it happened, but one day I realized I was making small sentences. The biggest change came when Mrs. Taylor asked us to come forward and say any one sentence in English. It could be anything, even "My name is," or "I like apples." She said we didn't have to make a speech, just one line. Many students said things like, "My name is Mark. I like to dance. I have a dog." When it was my turn, I stood up very slowly. My legs were shaking. My hands felt cold. But I took a breath, looked at my notebook, and said, "I am happy to be in this class." It was a sentence I had practiced in my room for 3 days. Simple, easy words. But when I said it, the class clapped. Not because it was perfect, but because it was mine. I had spoken. I had done it. That day I learned a big lesson. I don't need hard English words to speak well. I just need the ones I already know. After that, I began to look around me in a new way. When I walked home, I looked at things and said their names in English. Tree, road, dog, house, cloud. If I didn't know a word, I looked it up and wrote it down. Then I used it the next day. In the kitchen, I said, plate, spoon, cup, water. In the bedroom, I said pillow, bed, lamp, blanket. I didn't say full sentences all the time, sometimes just one word. But I said it with meaning. I even started saying things to myself when I was alone. When I woke up, I said, good morning. When I brushed my teeth, I said, time to brush. When I packed my bag, I said, books, notebook, pencil, done. I didn't care if no one heard me. I was speaking. I was practicing. My parents noticed it too. One day, my mom smiled and said, you speak a lot of English now, even in the kitchen. I laughed. Only small words, I said. But those small words were building something big. It wasn't just about vocabulary. It was about courage, confidence. Every word I said made me a little less scared. I began to remember them better too. Because I used them in real life, not just in my notebook. I stopped trying to remember hard words. I started to live with the easy ones. One word at a time. One small sentence. One quiet moment of speaking in my room. That was how I began to speak English. Not in front of a crowd, not on a stage, not in a test, but in small ways, with small words, every day. And slowly, those small words became part of me. But even though I could use words like thank you, sorry, and please, I still didn't know how to say longer things. I still got nervous when someone asked me, how was your day? Or, can you explain this? I needed more practice. Not just with words, but with speaking out loud. I thought to myself, if I can talk to myself when I'm walking, can I talk to myself while looking at myself? That thought led me to the next step in my journey. After I started speaking small English words every day, I felt something change inside me. The fear that once held my tongue tight had begun to loosen its grip. I was no longer completely silent. I could say things like hello, thank you, or I like apples. But even though I was speaking more than before, I still wasn't confident. I still hesitated, especially when I had to say more than one sentence. My mind would go blank. My voice would tremble. My words would mix up. I wanted to speak better, smoother, louder, but I didn't know how. One evening after dinner, I was cleaning my room. I picked up my notebook, my pencil, a few old school books, and placed them on my desk. Then I walked over to my closet to fold some clothes. As I shut the closet door, I caught my own reflection in the mirror. I stared at myself for a few seconds. My hair was tied up, my eyes looked tired, and my lips were pressed together as if afraid to move. Then a thought came to me. What if I talked to her, the girl in the mirror? It sounded silly at first, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I remembered something Mrs. Taylor had once said. If you want to speak English, you must first speak it to yourself. She didn't mean thinking in English. She meant actually saying it out loud, even if no one was listening. So that night I stood in front of the mirror. I looked at the girl staring back at me. She looked nervous, shy, just like me. I took a deep breath and said, "Hello, Angelina." I smiled, just a little. Then I said it. Again, "Hello, Angelina. How are you today?" I waited. I watched my face as I spoke. At first it felt strange. I felt silly talking to myself. But no one was watching. No one was judging me. There was no fear here. Just me and my own reflection. So I kept going. I'm happy today, I said. I went to school. I ate lunch with Mia. I used the word sorry. It was good. I knew the grammar wasn't perfect. The sentences were short, but they were real. They were mine. I was speaking. Each night after that, I made it a habit. I would brush my teeth, wash my face, and then stand in front of the mirror for 10 minutes. sometimes 15, sometimes even longer. At first, I didn't know what to say, so I would describe my day. I woke up at 6:30. I was sleepy. I brushed my teeth. I ate toast and eggs. I packed my bag. Sometimes I talked about my dreams, even the silly ones. Last night, I saw a big orange cat in my dream. It was flying. It had wings. I was laughing so hard. Sometimes I talked about what I was feeling. I am nervous about tomorrow. We have an English quiz. I don't want to fail. But I studied. I will try. And sometimes I just looked into my own eyes and said, "You can do this. You are learning. You are growing." I didn't use difficult words. I didn't care about perfect grammar. I just focused on speaking clearly, slowly, and with feeling. Every night I paid attention to how my mouth moved. I watched my lips form the words. I noticed how my face changed when I smiled, when I frowned, when I said something exciting. I began to learn what my voice sounded like when I was confident and when I was not. And slowly, that girl in the mirror started to change. She stood a little taller. She smiled a little more. Her words came out smoother, stronger. The mirror became my classroom, my safe place, my practice partner. I used it to try out new words I had learned during the day. Delicious. Favorite. Notebook. Afraid. Wonderful. Each new word felt like a tiny key that unlocked a new room in my mind. Sometimes I acted out small scenes by myself, like I was in a real conversation. I would pretend I was talking to my teacher. "Good morning, Mrs. Taylor. How are you?" Then I would reply to myself, "I am fine, Angelina. Are you ready for class?" "Yes, I am ready," or I would pretend I was ordering something at a cafe. "Hi, I would like a hot chocolate, please." "Sure. Would you like anything else?" "No, thank you." These mini conversations helped me feel more natural with English. They were like rehearsals for real life. The best part was I didn't feel embarrassed because it was just me. No one laughed. No one corrected me. No one said, "That's wrong." I had the freedom to make mistakes and try again. One night, after many weeks of mirror practice, I noticed something surprising. I was speaking faster. Not too fast, but faster than before. And smoother, too. The words didn't get stuck in my mouth as often. I wasn't searching for every little word. They just came. I also noticed that my fear of speaking in front of people was smaller. The next time Mrs. Taylor asked a question in class, I raised my hand. Not because I knew the perfect answer, but because I wanted to try. She smiled at me and said, "Yes, Angelina?" I stood up and said, "The answer is number 2, because the boy is eating lunch now." It was a simple sentence, but I said it without shaking, without looking at the floor, without hiding. My classmates looked at me, surprised. I looked back at them and smiled. That night, I looked into the mirror and said, "You did it." I didn't stop my practice after that. In fact, I added more to it. I began to practice expressions, how my face should look when I say different things. When I said something exciting, I widened my eyes and smiled. I got a new book today. When I was sad, I lowered my voice and looked down. I didn't do well in my test today. When I was curious, I tilted my head and said, "What do you mean?" These small details helped me become more confident, not just in words, but in the way I spoke them. I also started recording myself on my phone. Not every day, just sometimes. I would say something in English, then listen to it. Sometimes I laughed at how I sounded. But I also learned from it. I saw what I needed to improve. I noticed where I paused too much, where I said or too often, or when my voice was too quiet. These recordings were like little windows into my growth. Every time I listened, I felt a little prouder of myself. One night, my younger brother walked into my room while I was practicing in the mirror. He looked confused. "Why are you talking to yourself?" he asked. I laughed. I'm not talking to myself, I said. I'm talking to my future self. He didn't understand, but I did. I was preparing for a day when I could speak English in front of others without fear. I was preparing for real life, for interviews, for friends, for travel, for everything, and the mirror was helping me. Even now, when I speak to someone in English, I still hear the voice of that girl in the mirror, the one who was scared at first, the one who stood there night after night saying, "You can do this." And she was right, because all those nights of practice gave me the courage to go one step further. I no longer wanted to just speak alone. I wanted to practice with someone else, a real person, a friend who could help me, someone who would listen, laugh, reply, and learn with me. That's when I realized I needed to share this journey with someone close to me. After many nights of talking to the girl in the mirror, I started to feel a kind of quiet power growing inside me. That mirror had helped me so much. It had become my friend, my teacher, my stage. I had learned how to say what I felt, how to speak clearly, and how to control my nervous voice. But now, I felt ready to try something different. Something real. I wanted to use my words, not just in the mirror, but in the world outside. Still, a small fear lived in the back of my mind. What if I messed up? What if I forgot the words? What if someone didn't understand me? I knew I had to keep things simple. That's when I remembered something my English teacher once told our class. Easy sentences can still be powerful. Use them well. Repeat them often. They will become your best friends. I didn't understand what she meant at first. But when I started to really think about it, I realized it made perfect sense. Every time I repeated a simple sentence, I remembered it better. I said it faster. I felt less nervous. The sentence started to feel like it was a part of me, not just something I had memorized. So I began to build a small set of easy English sentences, sentences that I could use every day, sentences I could repeat until they lived in my mouth and danced on my tongue like a song. I started with sentences about myself because I always knew what I wanted to say about me. My name is Angelina. I am a student. I like learning English. I want to speak better. I try every day. These were my first 5. I said them every morning, while brushing my teeth, while walking to school, while standing in line at the store. I didn't care if someone heard me or not. I just kept saying them. At first, I spoke them slowly. My name is Angelina, but then faster. My name is Angelina. I am a student. I like learning English. They became so easy that I could say them without thinking, and that gave me confidence. Then I added more sentences. I picked ones that I could use in class with friends or with my family. Can I help you? Can you help me? What is this? I don't understand. Please say it again. Each of these became part of my daily practice. Sometimes I made a little game for myself. I would choose one sentence and try to use it 5 times that day. If the sentence was, "Can you help me?" then I would look for 5 moments where I could use it. When I couldn't find the right moment, I made up situations with my little brother. I'd say, "Can you help me find my book?" Or, "Can you help me close the door?" He didn't always understand why I was doing it, but he liked the attention, so he played along. Soon, I noticed something amazing. The more I used the same sentence, the more natural it felt. The more I repeated it, the more it became part of my voice. I didn't need to think. I didn't need to translate. I just spoke, and every time I used a sentence in real life, it felt like a small victory. At school, when I needed help with math homework, I said, "Can you help me, Mia?" She smiled and said, "Of course." That was the first time I used English to ask for help without thinking first in my own language. I didn't plan it, I just said it. And that made me feel like I was finally becoming a real English speaker. After that, I started to make short sentence lists in my notebook. I carried it with me everywhere. I had a page for greetings, Good morning. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. Nice to see you. I had a page for daily actions. I am going to school. I am eating lunch. I am reading a book. I am walking home. And I had a page for feelings. I am happy. I am tired. I am nervous. I am excited. I read these lists out loud every day. I practice them before class. I whispered them while waiting for the bus. I even said them while washing dishes at home. Each time I repeated them, they became easier to say. The strange thing was, repeating these simple sentences didn't feel boring. It felt comforting, like meeting old friends again and again. One evening while I was doing my homework, I saw my little brother looking at me. He had a puzzled look on his face. "Why do you always say the same things again and again?" I asked. I smiled. "Because saying them again makes them mine," I said. He didn't fully understand, but that was okay. I understood. Repetition was not just practice, it was power. It was the bridge between knowing and doing. I remember one special day when I really felt the difference. It was a Friday. Our English class had a speaking activity. We had to pair up with another student and ask each other simple questions. I was nervous, but I had practiced those exact sentences for weeks. What is your name? How old are you? What is your favorite color? Do you like sports? I had said these so many times in my mirror, to my brother, and even to the trees when I walked home. So when it was my turn, I looked at the girl sitting across from me. Her name was Sophia, and I asked confidently, "What is your name?" She smiled and said, "Sophia." I smiled back. "Nice to meet you, Sophia. My name is Angelina." The whole class was speaking. There was noise everywhere. But in that moment, I only heard our voices. "What is your favorite food?" I asked. "I like pizza," she said. "What about you?" "I like pasta," I replied. "And ice cream." We both laughed. It was a small conversation, a simple one. But for me, it was like climbing a mountain and reaching the top. That night, I wrote in my diary, "I spoke in English today without fear. Repeating the same easy sentences made me ready. I didn't need to think. The words came to me, like magic, but it wasn't magic, it was practice." From that day on, I made repetition my daily habit. Before going to sleep, I would say 10 sentences out loud. Sometimes, I added small changes to them. I like apples. I like bananas. I like oranges. Or, this is my book. This is my pen. This is my desk. Changing just one word made me practice many things at once: vocabulary, grammar, and confidence. Over time, I became brave enough to use these sentences in shops, with teachers, with neighbors. I knew they weren't perfect, but they worked, and they made me feel strong. Even when I forgot new words, I always had my easy sentences to fall back on. They became my safety net, my foundation. Repeating them helped me in every situation. At the library, at school, at home. One afternoon, I was walking with my mom through the supermarket. She stopped near the fruit section and asked me in our native language, "Can you ask the man if these apples are fresh?" I felt a little nervous, but I nodded. I walked up to the man and said, "Excuse me, are these apples fresh?" He smiled and said, "Yes, they are fresh today." I said, "Thank you," and walked back to my mom. My heart was beating fast, but not from fear, from excitement. Repeating those words for so many weeks had prepared me for that moment. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror, just like I always did, but this time I didn't need my notebook. I didn't need my lists. I looked at myself and said, "You did well today. You spoke clearly. You were not afraid. You are learning." And I smiled, because I knew that repeating those small, easy sentences had helped me more than any grammar rule ever could. They gave me the tools I needed to speak in real life. They gave me the confidence to keep going, but I still wanted more. Now that I could say simple sentences, I wanted to practice speaking longer, like in real conversations. I needed someone to talk with every day, someone who could help me grow, laugh, and learn faster. That evening, after I spoke English at the supermarket, I couldn't stop thinking about how it made me feel. Just one small sentence with a stranger had made my whole day brighter. It felt like I had opened a tiny door. In a big house, I wanted to open more doors. I wanted to speak more, with more people, and not just in safe places like my room or my mirror. Still, a big part of me was scared. I had been practicing with myself, and that was good. It gave me strength. But real conversations, with real people, that was different. My heart beat faster when I even thought about it. What if I said something wrong? What if they didn't understand me? What if they laughed? These questions filled my mind, and for a while they made me quiet again. I didn't want to lose the small confidence I had built. But then I remembered something my mirror had taught me. I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to try. I didn't need to speak to the whole world at once. I just needed to start with one person. One person. That idea felt small enough to hold, simple enough to try. So I sat in my room and thought, who is the one person I feel safe with? Who will not laugh at me if I make a mistake? The answer came quickly. Her name was Lila. She had been my classmate since 3rd grade. She was kind, always smiling, and never made anyone feel bad. She wasn't the loudest girl in class, but she had a quiet strength that I admired. We didn't talk very much, but I always liked her. The next day at school, I walked into class feeling nervous but hopeful. I had made a small plan. I wouldn't say too much. I would just try to say 1 or 2 things in English. I would test the water, like dipping a toe into a cold lake. At lunchtime, I saw Lila sitting alone at one of the benches outside. The sun was warm, and the trees gave some nice shade. I took a deep breath and walked over. "Hi," I said, sitting beside her. "Hi," she smiled. I held my notebook tightly in my hand. Then I looked at her and said slowly, "I am trying to speak more English. Can I talk with you?" She looked surprised for a second, then smiled even wider. "Of course," she said. "That sounds fun." I felt a wave of relief. She didn't laugh. She didn't look confused. She was happy to help. We started simply. "What is your favorite color?" I asked her. "Blue," she said. "And you?" "I like yellow," I answered. Then she asked, "What do you like to eat?" I thought for a second. "I like pasta and pizza." We laughed together. That short conversation was only a few minutes long, but it meant everything to me. I had spoken in English with someone real, and nothing bad had happened. In fact, it felt nice. After that, I started talking to Lila every day, sometimes just for 5 minutes, sometimes longer. She didn't correct me. She didn't make me feel wrong. She just listened, and she spoke slowly, too, to help me understand. Little by little, I felt my words growing. My sentences became longer, my voice became clearer, my fear became smaller. One day after school, Lila turned to me and said, "You're getting really good, Angelina. You sound more confident now." I smiled and said, "Thank you. You helped me so much." Then she said something that changed everything. "Why don't you talk to Mia next? She's nice too. She also wants to practice English." At first, I felt the fear return. Talk to someone else? Someone new? But then I remembered how scared I had been to talk to Lila. And now, talking to her felt easy. Maybe I could do it again, that week. I sat with Mia during lunch. Lila was there too, so it felt safer. We talked about school and books and snacks. Simple things, easy words. But every word was a small step forward. After a few days, Mia started joining me and Lila for our after-school walks. We spoke in English. We helped each other. We laughed. Now, instead of just one friend, I had two. I began to see that confidence is like a little candle. When you light it, it's small. But when you share it with others, it spreads. It grows. It becomes brighter. One afternoon, Mia brought another friend, her cousin Bella. "Can she walk with us too?" she asked. I nodded. Bella was quiet at first, but she listened to us speak in English. Then slowly, she joined in. "I am learning too," she said one day. "You girls are brave." That word, brave, stayed with me. I didn't feel brave at first. But maybe being brave just meant doing small things even when you're scared. By the end of the month, I had a little group of friends who all wanted to speak better English. We weren't perfect. We made mistakes all the time. But we helped each other. Sometimes we met at the park on Saturdays. We brought snacks, sat on the grass, and had little English conversations. "Tell me about your family," one would say. "What's your favorite subject in school?" Another would ask, and we would answer, slowly, carefully, happily. Our group started to grow. Lila invited her neighbor. Mia invited her class partner. Bella brought her older sister one time. At first, I was nervous about each new person. But with each conversation, I grew stronger. It was like climbing small stairs, one step at a time. One day at school, our English teacher gave us a speaking task. We had to stand in front of the class and talk about something we liked. My hands shook a little. My heart raced. But then I looked at my friends in the room, Lila, Mia, Bella, and they smiled at me. I stood up. "I want to talk about learning." "English," I said clearly. I told the class about how I started with small words, how I practiced in front of a mirror, how I repeated easy sentences, and how I began speaking with just one friend. I told them, speaking English in public is not easy, but it becomes easier when you try with one person. Just one, then two, then more. When I finished, the class clapped. My teacher looked proud, and I felt something inside me shift. For the first time, I didn't feel like a quiet girl who was just learning English. I felt like a girl who could speak English, a girl who could teach others how to be brave too. From that moment, I made it a goal to speak English to at least one new person every week. Sometimes I spoke to the librarian, sometimes to a shopkeeper, sometimes to another student in the hallway. Some days, the words came out easily. Other days, I made mistakes. But I never stopped, because I had learned something important. When you speak to one person, you are not just practicing words, you are building a bridge. And once that bridge is built, you can walk across it again, and even invite others to walk with you. After my speech in front of the class, something inside me changed. For the first time in my life, I felt like my voice mattered. I had stood in front of many students, spoken in English, and shared my journey. The applause I received was not just for my words, it was for my courage, my effort, my heart. I walked home that day with a light step and a smile that wouldn't fade. But as the days went on, I learned something important. Progress is not always a straight line. Sometimes you climb high and feel proud, and then you stumble and fall and feel small again. It started a few days after my classroom talk. My English teacher, Mrs. Lane, asked me if I would like to be part of the school's English speaking club. It was a new group, and they were planning to host an open discussion during the school assembly. Each member would say something, in English, just a few lines, about learning languages. At first, I felt honored. Me? On stage? Speaking English to the whole school? "Yes," I said without thinking too much. "I would love to." But as the day of the assembly got closer, fear started to grow again. This time, it wasn't just a small class of familiar faces. It was the entire school, hundreds of students, teachers, even the principal. And I would be speaking with a microphone. My stomach turned just thinking about it. Still, I practiced every night, in front of my mirror, with my friends. I even recorded myself and listened to how I sounded. I tried to smile, tried to speak slowly and clearly, just like I had practiced. The night before the assembly, I stayed up late, going over my lines, again and again. I was nervous, but I was also excited. I told myself, "You've done this before. You can do it again." But the next morning, something unexpected happened. When it was my turn to speak, I walked up to the microphone with my heart beating like a drum in my chest. The stage lights were so bright, and from where I stood, all I could see was a sea of faces. I opened my mouth and began. "Hello. My name is Angelina. I want to talk about... I froze. The next word vanished from my mind like smoke in the wind. I looked at my paper. My hands shook so much that the words blurred. I tried again. "I want to talk about learning English." But my voice cracked. I skipped a line, then another. My mind raced. I mixed up the words. I said something like, "English learning is fear, but grow," which didn't even make sense. I heard a few students giggle in the back rows. That sound hit me like a cold wind. I hurried through the rest of my lines, not even thinking about what I was saying anymore. I just wanted it to be over. When I finished, I walked off the stage quickly, keeping my head down. I sat back in my seat, blinking back tears. I messed up, I told myself. I embarrassed myself, in front of everyone. For the rest of the day, I stayed quiet. My friends tried to tell me it was okay, that I had been brave, but I couldn't believe them. My mind kept replaying the mistakes, the stumbles, the laughter. That night, I sat on my bed and looked at the mirror. The same mirror where I had practiced every night. It felt like a stranger now. "I'm not good enough," I whispered to myself. Maybe I shouldn't speak in public again. But then I remembered something. When I first started, I couldn't even say hello without feeling nervous. I had made small steps. I had grown. I had dared to speak in front of the whole school. Yes, I had made mistakes, but I had shown up. That meant something. So I opened my notebook and wrote 3 simple words. I won't stop. The next day, I went to see Mrs. Lane. I told her I was sorry for the way I spoke at the assembly. She looked surprised. "Sorry? Angelina, you were amazing." "Amazing?" I asked. "But I messed up. I forgot words. I said things wrong." She smiled gently. "That's not what I saw. I saw a young girl who stood on a stage and tried. That's more than most students are willing to do. Mistakes are part of the journey. Every speaker, even adults, make them." She reached into her drawer and took out a small notebook. "This is a journal from one of my past students. She used to feel just like you, but she kept trying. Now, she works as a news reporter." I took the notebook and opened it. Inside, I saw the words, "Today I made mistakes, but tomorrow I'll try again. That's how I grow." I closed the notebook and smiled. Maybe I wasn't alone in this. So I made a new goal. I would keep speaking English in public, but this time I would not run away from mistakes. I would accept them, learn from them, and most of all, keep going. I started small again. I ordered food at a new restaurant in English. I asked a question at the library in English. I helped a younger student in English class with her homework, explaining what a verb is in simple words. Some days I spoke well. Other days I forgot words or said them the wrong way. Once I said, "I am boring," when I meant to say, "I am bored." Everyone laughed kindly and I laughed too. I didn't cry. I didn't hide. Because now I understood that every mistake was just a sign that I was learning. One afternoon, our school had a language fun day where students could set up booths and teach words in different languages. I joined Lila and Mia, and we made a small English practice corner. We wrote simple words on cards, played vocabulary games, and helped students build small sentences. At one point, a shy girl named Ava came to our booth. She looked nervous, just like I used to look. "Do you want to try?" I asked gently. She shook her head. I'm scared. What if I say it wrong? I smiled and leaned closer. Then you'll be just like me. I say things wrong all the time. But every time I try, I get a little better. She looked at me for a second, then picked up a card. Cat, she read. Perfect, I said. She smiled. In that moment, I realized how far I had come. From a girl who was scared to speak to a girl helping others speak. From someone who feared mistakes to someone who used them to grow. And that journey was not magic. It was just about not giving up. Mistakes had not stopped me. They had built me. I was not perfect, but I was proud. Final conclusion, I found my voice, and you can. Too, when I look back now, back to that day I first whispered the word hello to myself in my room. I can hardly believe I was the same girl. The one who was scared to speak, who thought her accent was too strong, her grammar too weak, her voice too small. That girl still lives inside me, but she's not afraid anymore. Because she grew, slowly, gently, through practice, through mistakes, and most of all, through not giving up. My journey didn't happen in one big moment. It wasn't magic. It was thousands of tiny steps, speaking one small word, then one short sentence, practicing alone, practicing in front of a mirror, talking. To one friend, then to 5, then to a class, then to a crowd. And yes, making mistakes every step of the way. But that's the thing no one tells you at the start. Mistakes are not your enemy. They're your best teachers. I used to think that if I made a mistake, people would laugh at me or think I was stupid. I was wrong. Yes, some people did laugh, but most people respected the courage it took to even try. And more importantly, I began to respect myself. I realized that every time I spoke, even if I got it wrong, I was learning. I was becoming stronger. There were times when I wanted to quit, times when I thought, maybe I'm just not good at English, maybe this is not for me. But in those moments, I remembered how far I had come. I remembered the girl who couldn't even say her name out loud in English. I remembered the first time I tried, how my heart raced, how my hands shook, but how I did it anyway. And slowly, I began to fall in love with the process. Not just the success, but the whole journey. The nights I stood in front of my mirror and stumbled through sentences. The times I got one word right and smiled for an hour. The silly mistakes that made my friends laugh and brought us closer. The quiet, brave moments when I whispered English words to myself while walking home from school. The first time I helped someone else speak English and saw my own story reflected in their eyes. Today, I don't speak perfect English. I still make mistakes. I still forget words sometimes. But I speak with confidence. I speak with joy. I speak without fear. And that is more powerful than perfection. I now help lead the English speaking club at my school. I give small talks, lead games, and encourage others to speak up, just like I once needed someone to encourage me. I've become the person I once looked for. The friend who smiles when you say something wrong, who says, "Don't worry, try again," and who reminds you that your voice matters. I've also started writing down my thoughts in English, just for myself. At first, it was short diary entries. Now, I write letters, poems, and even stories. Writing helps me think in English, and it shows me how much I've grown. I read those old pages sometimes and smile. The grammar was messy, the words were simple, but they were full of heart. And that heart still beats in every word I write. One day, I want to travel. I want to go to places where people speak English every day, where I can use what I've learned not just in school, but in real life. I want to make friends from other countries, share stories, and understand different ways of life. I believe language is not just for tests, it's for connecting with the world. Sometimes younger students come to me and ask, "How did you do it? How did you learn to speak English in public?" And I always smile, because I know how hard it is at the beginning. I tell them the truth. You start small, with one word, one smile, one mirror. You speak even when your voice shakes. You make mistakes and keep going. And one day, without even realizing it, you find your voice. And it's true. You don't need to be the smartest. You don't need perfect grammar. You don't need to sound like a native speaker. You just need to care. You need to want it. You need to try, over and over and over again. I used to look at other people and think, they're so good at English. I'll never be like them. But now I know everyone starts somewhere. Even the best speakers were once beginners. Even they made mistakes. What made them great wasn't talent. It was effort. It was courage. It was time. So if you are reading this and you're scared to speak English in public, know this. You are not alone. I've been there. I know the fear. I know the silence. But I also know the joy that comes when you break through that fear. When you finally speak up and someone understands you. When your words reach another person's heart. That's a feeling no mistake can ever take away. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until your English is perfect. Start now. With what you know. With the words you have. Speak in front of a mirror. Talk to a friend. Join a group. Read out loud. Sing a song. Ask a question. Tell a story. And if you mess up, smile and try again. Because that's what brave people do. And if no one else tells you, let me be the first. You are brave. Every time you open your mouth and speak in a new language, you are doing something powerful. Something most people are too scared to even try. I used to think I was just a quiet girl who would never be able to speak English out loud. Now I know better. I am Angelina. I am a student. I am a speaker. I am a learner. I am someone who tried, who failed, who tried again, and who found her voice. And if I can do it, so can you. Let your voice be heard, mistakes and all, because your journey matters, and it's only just beginning.